Peep the shirt, y'all. It's Black History Month, and I'm very excited to give you my February TBR and what Black authors and Black books I'll be reading. But we're going to start with my January wrap up, which should be fairly quickly because a lot of these books are already in some vlogs that are going to be coming out. So grab a drink and let's get into the January wrap up and then dive into what I'll be reading for Black History Month. Oh, quickly, I did want to say, if you're intrigued with this shirt, this is actually merch from a band that I really like, a New Orleans band that gets down named Tank and the Bangas. This is their merch. Go listen to them if you haven't. I'll have their stuff linked below. They're phenomenal. But other than that, let's really get into the video this time. Hey y'all, welcome to or welcome back to my channel, Scotty Cherie Reads. Let's jump right into the books that I read in January. So, for starters, I want to talk about the project that I'm doing where I am reading the top 10 books of the Goodreads Choice Awards horror category. I have a lot of these books here. I'm not going to talk about any of these that I read for that project because that's going to be a very in-depth video. So just know that I am making my way through that. I'm almost there. It will be out in February for sure. So look out for that. So let's get into the first book that I officially finished outside of books that I read for that specific horror video. Hugo says hi, y'all. He's always super close by. But the first book that I read was a continuation in the We Were Children series. If you guys don't know, last year I read all of them all the way through and I ranked them. I'll have that video linked above. And there's a new book in the continuation of the series that comes out every January. So I immediately went and picked up Through Gates of Garnet and Gold by Seanan McGuire, which is the 11th book in the Wayward Children series. And unfortunately, this was pretty disappointing. I gave this a 1.5-star rating. I was so sad because in this book we follow Nancy, and if you know, we know Nancy from the beginning. Like, we met Nancy in the first book, and her world is the Halls of the Dead. So if you don't know, the Wayward Children series follows these kids who basically don't really fit in, and this portal world like door opens for them, and they go in, and this world is curated just for them and they belong. However, sometimes these kids are thrown out of their portal fantasy worlds back into reality, and they're just having a hard time fitting in. And these kids or misfit or wayward children go to Eleanor West Home for Wayward Children. And we just follow all of these kids and their journeys and how sometimes their doors reopen. And that's all I really want to say. But Nancy is a character that we've been following a lot, and I was really intrigued with her world, the Halls of the Dead. But I just felt like this book was just regurgitating everything that we already knew. I feel like Seanan McGuire was telling us and recapping, because there are a lot of characters in here that we know throughout this 10-book series that we've already read, and they all get together, which I thought was going to be so awesome, to save Nancy and Nancy's world. But there was just a lot of regurgitation of what we already knew from the books, and it just seemed really pointless. I also think that in a lot of these books, there is an overarching like message or like moral or almost like a fable, like Abe Sap's fable, something that you take from the book. And I didn't feel like there was anything new from this book that we hadn't heard before, which was sad. I don't know. I feel like this was just kind of a money grab, or like maybe Seanan McGuire didn't know what else to write and knew that Nancy was a favorite, but I really feel like you can skip this one. I mean, I own it. I'm gonna keep working my way through the series if she continues with the series, but this was a big disappointment for me, unfortunately. Next up, I read the very popular nonfiction, One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Aked. I think that this book is good, and I think it's very kind of surface level, and I think that I just need a little bit more time to sit with it to give a full rating. As of right now, I think I'm giving it a 3.5-star rating. It didn't hit, sorry, ignore Hugo, but it just wasn't as profound and moving as I expected it to be. I think a lot of this is surface level. I also want to say that this is a nonfiction book, but it's also part memoir because Omar is and has been an award-winning novelist and journalist for a really, really long time. And he's documented other wars, not just what has been going on in Palestine. And he was in Afghanistan, Iran, a lot of big wars. And I just don't know how I felt about a nonfiction book that talks about facts, but then also weaves in his own story. Some people are going to love it, some people aren't going to like it. I just felt that he pointed out issues with other journalists and news outlets and the way propaganda is kind of spread. But as I said, he's a novelist and a journalist himself, but he didn't really talk about personally like how he himself influenced the news and things as well. I don't know. It's not a bad book. If you want to pick it up, I say definitely pick it up. I just think that I need to parse through this a bit in my brain to eloquently explain why there was kind of a frustrating thing that was there for me while reading this book. Maybe I'll come back and do a full independent review of this one because I know this is incredibly popular. But for now, I just want to say it was pretty good, 3.5 stars, and I just need to ponder why there was just something that didn't really sit right with me for this memoir, nonfiction, complicated fusion of a book. All right, next up, I finally picked up my TBR Jar read, and I had to decide between The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi and Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers, and ultimately I decided to pick up Blue Sisters only because I actually was more intrigued to pick up The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, but the second book in this series is going to be released in May, so I figured I should just read the first one in like April or May, closer to the second release, so then everything's fresh when I read the second book. So very excited to pick this one up, but didn't pick it up this month. However, I decided to pick up Blue Sisters, which is a story about 4 sisters, the Blue Sisters, and we know that one of the sisters has passed away, like unexpectedly, and we're getting this story and how they're grappling with this grief between the other 3 sisters' perspectives. Sounds like it'd be great, sounds like it was gonna be a tearjerker, but I literally had to DNF this book at page 189. I will never read a book by Coco Mellers ever again. I am so surprised because I have seen nothing but like phenomenal rave reviews about Blue Sisters. And I had such a problem with the way that Coco Mellers wrote her minority characters and even the ways she used them in this story. I feel like this one needs a whole book rant review too. What's funny is that I don't think I've seen very many Black people give reviews about this book. It's a lot of white women who give reviews, rave reviews about this, and maybe I should have known this, or maybe I was in the dark about Coco Mellers, but absolutely not. It gave I had know anyone or talked to anyone in my life except for white people. I don't know anything about minorities, and this is just what I've been told, and it's just so stereotypical and very problematic. I also saw that there is a Black character in here, that there's an author or poet in England that is kind of raising awareness to say that he thinks that she used him as insane inspiration for this book and didn't tell him, and other people have said the same thing, and he's just seen it in a terrible light. I don't know exactly what happened with him, but yeah, no, I will be unhauling this. I will not be picking up anything else by Coco Mellers. This infuriated me to no end. I haven't read a book that has written a minority this terribly in such a long time, and I'm so insanely disappointed that I don't see more reviews that are cracking down on how terrible this book was. So if I can find time and like calm down a bit, I feel like this is important to do a full rant video about why and to read passages that just speak for themselves in the way that she wrote it. But I'm not gonna do that right now, but just so you know, absolutely not. Hopefully the pick that we'll do in a little bit for February will be better than this one. Okay, woo. After talking about that book, it just charge the fire that I have for how much I hated that book. So let's switch gears. The next book that I read was actually a great one. And again, I'm not going to say too much because I already have a full review, non-spoiler and spoiler, for this new release that just came out, which is Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. I will say I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars to 4.5 stars. Not quite a 5-star read, but I loved it. What I do want to say about this is that this is not a romance book. I think that a lot of people assume that because of the cover. There's a reason for why Jennette McCurdy wrote Half His Age and not like twice her age, you know? And for this picture, you have to read it to understand it. If you don't know, this follows Waldo, a 17-year-old girl who has a pretty tough life. And she, for some reason, has this affection for her 34-year-old married creative writer high school teacher, and they form a relationship, if that's what you want to call it. Check your trigger warnings because it is very intense. Very intense. Jennette McCurdy does it for a reason, I think. Yeah, just be aware. As I said, I think Jennette McCurdy did a great job with this. I also loved I'm Glad My Mom Died. If you read I'm Glad My Mom Died, I feel like you'll understand some of the more personal sides of this fictional novel that Jennette McCurdy wrote, because you know that she had an age gap relationship around the same age herself. So you can tell. And also I'll leave some of the interviews down below that I think is important to watch before reading this book or after reading this book to understand what she was trying to do with it. But yeah, it worked for me. But as I said, that video will be out in the next like 2 uploads. So watch out for it in the next week. All right, so aside from all of those horror books that I talked about, that some of them I finished already, some of them I'm in the middle of, I'm just gonna talk about them here because of that video that I'm working really hard on. But I did want to say I'm also in the middle of a nonfiction book called Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, The Origins of Our Discontents. And I am on page 111. And from my previous video where I just couldn't film that day because of the news of Alex Pretty's murder, I decided to pick up a book that was going to help educate me about our world in general. And the next day I picked up Cast, and I am very much enjoying it. It says that Isabel Wilkerson gives us a masterful portrait of an unseen phenomenon in America as she explores through an immersive, deeply researched narrative and stories about real people, how America today and throughout its history has been shaped by a hidden caste system, a rigid hierarchy of human rankings. That's all I'm gonna say. This is great. I'm moving through it kind of slowly, but learning a lot, and yeah, I will let you know in February when I finish it how I felt about it. All right, so let's move into what I hope and plan to read for February, which is Black History Month. So there are a lot of Black authors on this list. We'll get to that, but I want to start this with pulling my TBR jar picks. These things are dusty, so don't say anything. I saw that too, but we'll ignore that. But as I've mentioned, I have put all of my unread books from Kindle and my physical books into these 2 jars. The colors are based off of genre. I pull one from each jar, and then I pick which one I want to read in the month that I pull them. So let's get our first pick here. I'm not gonna look. I'm going to put my hand pretty far down in there, and we're gonna pull this one, which is orange. And orange is fantasy or sci-fi. I'm gonna leave it here. We'll open them together. Here's the second jar. I'm going to, ooh, these have been sitting for a minute. Pick another one, let's see. Let's grab this one, another orange. So I don't know how to feel about that. Because fantasy books can be kind of long, and as you'll see in this video, I have high expectations to get to a lot of books, so we'll see. First one says, oh Lord. Okay, we have Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. if you can see that. For the first one, I'll grab them in a second. And the second sci-fi fantasy here. Okay. It's Clay's Ark by Octavia E. Butler. So I don't know if you can see that there. Cool. Let me go grab them and I will be right back to tell you what they're each about. Okay, I'm back. I've grabbed the books and I already know which book I'm going to read. But to start, we're gonna get this one out of the way because I am not reading this one this month, which is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Adrian Tchaikovsky is a very well-known sci-fi writer. I haven't read from him yet, but I know this one's really popular because it's like about giant spiders in space. That's all I know. I'm not even gonna read the back of this because I already know since it's Black History Month, I'm gonna pick up Octavia E. Butler. So sorry to him, we'll throw it back in the jar for another time, but we're not doing that this month. However, you saw that I picked up Clay's Ark, which is the third book, I believe, in the Patternist series, which I have all four here. But in terms of my TBR jar, if it's a series like this one that has 4 books, I put all 4 of the books in the jar for different slips, and whichever one I grab, that's the next one that I'll do in the series for where I'm at. So since I haven't read and haven't started this series, instead of starting with the third book, Clay's Ark, I'm gonna start with the first book, which is Wild Seed. And I've heard that this series is bonkers. Octavia E. Butler is a well-known Black sci-fi writer. I have read Parable of the Sower. I haven't read Parable of the Talent yet. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to, but I'm excited to pick this up. What a perfect time to pull it. On the back, it says, in an epic story of love and hate, 2 immortals chase each other across continents and centuries, binding their fates together and changing the destiny of the human race. That's it. That's all I want to know. Like I said, I've heard this is bonkers and that a lot of people are like, read the trigger warnings before you pick this up. But as you guys know, I am lucky enough that I don't need to do that. Nothing bothers me too much most of the time. So I'm just excited to go into this sci-fi world from the infamous Octavia E. Butler and see where it takes me. So yeah, looks like I'll be starting this one this month in Black History Month. Okay, next up, as you guys know, I am reading through Toni Morrison's book in publication order, and the next on the list, and I'm trying to do this quarterly now, is Song of Solomon. This is the next one. It says here on the back, Milkman Dead was born shortly after a neighborhood eccentric hurled himself off a rooftop in a vain attempt at flight. For the rest of his life, he too will be trying to fly. With this brilliantly imagined novel, Nobel Prize laureate Toni Morrison audaciously transfigures the coming-of-age story. As she follows Milkman from his Rust Belt city to the place of his family's origins, Morrison introduces an entire cast of strivers and seeresses, liars and assassins, the inhabitants of a fully realized Black world. Okay, so with Toni Morrison's book, I know it is going to make me cry. It is going to make my jaw drop. Sorry, I'm going to put this down because of the reflection. And with this description on the back, there's going to be so much more than what is vaguely on the back of that book. So yeah, I've been meaning to get around to this for almost a year, so I can't wait to pick up another Toni Morrison this month. Might as well. I was like, I'm going to do it in the first quarter. I'm going to do it in Black History Month, obviously. Next up, we're going to talk about Stephen King. You guys know that every month I'm trying to read a Stephen King book and go through his stuff in publication order as well. And next up, I have my reread of The Shining. I skipped it in January. I told you guys that when I came back to the channel, January 1st, and I said I was going to start reading it in February, so I definitely will read this one. It should be pretty quick since I've read it already, and this is just a reread for me, but that's all I'm going to say. You guys know what the story of The Shining is. Yeah, very excited to pick this one up as well. Alrighty, then there's a couple of books from my little project, 12 books recommended to me by 12 different friends that I'll have linked above. And I said in that video that I'm very eager to pick up James by Percival Everett. My friend Nkechi over at Library of Wonder suggested this one, which was their favorite book of 2025. I'm also reading this because my mother-in-law is rereading it for their book club, and I think it's really fun when we can kind of buddy read read books together. And also, I read The Trees last year by Percival Everett and absolutely loved it. That was my first Percival Everett book that I've ever read. So I was just very eager to pick this up. If you don't know, this is the Pulitzer Prize finalist, Percival Everett for James, which is a retelling or reimagining of the story, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, but told from the slave's perspective, Jim or James. That's all I know. That's all I want to know. I can't wait to pick this up. I'm going to listen to it on audiobook and read the physical, like do an immersive reading where I'm looking at the pages, but having someone read the story to me because I've heard that the audiobook is fantastic. So this I'm very eager to pick up. So thanks, Nkechi. I pushed this up to read for Black History Month. The other book that I want to read from that 12 books from 12 friends list is Ray's pick, who is over at Bookmark Chronicles. I'll have everything linked below. And that is Amari and the Great Game, which is the second book in it's going to be a 5-book series. The Supernatural Investigators. I've read the first one, Amari and the Night Brothers, and then just never continued. And I'm excited to reread this one and then pick up the second book in this middle grade fantasy. Spoiler alert, or not spoiler alert, I guess you should know that the 4th book in this series is releasing in February. I'm not sure, it depends on how this month goes, if I'm going to binge all of them, all 4, or the first 3, and then pick up the 4th one and read that as well. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time this month to do that, but I will definitely read at least the second book this month for Black History Month. So stay tuned on my thoughts of that. Thanks, Ray, for that pick. And the third book from this list is actually from my husband, Ben, and this author is not Black for Black History Month, but I really, really want to read this one because of what's going on in our world right now, and that is 1984 by George Orwell. If you don't know, this is a classic OG dystopian book, and he picked this because he knows I'm going to have a lot to say because this book came out in, let's see, this book came out in 1949, it looks like, and he said that it is very similar to what we're going through right now. So I definitely want to pick this one up there. So that's 3 books from that list that I hopefully can conquer this month in February. Now let's get into just other random picks that I like to get to in February. As you know, I like to read at least one nonfiction read a month. So the one that I picked for Black History Month is Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson, a story of justice and redemption. So we're basically following Bryan Stevenson, who is a gifted young attorney who founded the Equal Justice Initiative, a legal practice dedicated to defending the poor, the wrongly condemned, and those trapped in the furthest reaches of the criminal justice system. It says that one of his first cases was that of Walter McMillan, who was a young man sentenced to death for a notorious murder he didn't commit. And he just takes us through that whole story, and I believe that Walter McMillan was released, exonerated. So yeah, this is awesome. So this is going to be my nonfiction read. And I know that there is a movie adaptation that has Michael B. Jordan in it. So I'm thinking, because as you know, I'm trying to do more book versus movie adaptation or film adaptation or TV show adaptations. And since this one has a movie, I'm thinking about setting aside its own video just for the difference between the book and the movie. So look out for that. I'm excited for this one this month. All right, quickly, I'm going to go over a couple arcs that I'm very excited about. One, I am very much going to get to in February, which is, I have 2 I'm actually going to talk about. The first one is The Art of Loving You by Natasha Bishop. This is the second book from Natasha Bishop. And if you don't know, I absolutely loved Only for the Week that I read 2 years ago, I believe. Such a good romance. Natasha Bishop and Kennedy Ryan are 2 Black women authors who basically changed my mind of me saying that I'm not a romance reader at all, because their books were captivating. And The Art of Loving You is the second book in the same universe. What is that series called? One second. It's called the Forever Falling series, number 2. And I don't want to know much about this. In my previous video, which I'll have linked above, all I said was it's an intimate bucket list road trip, sexy banter, and sweet and spicy second chance romance. That's it. I don't want to know anything else. I am very much going to pick up this, which will be a good breakup between some of these heavy books to have a cute little romance. And then the second arc that I have is not from a Black author, but I think that it'll be cool to pick up this short story collection, which is called I Know a Place, which is by Nat Cassidy, a horror author, and I love his stuff. Rest Stop I've actually read. I have my own individual copy, and that's one of the short stories that's in this book, but there are a bunch of other ones. I plan on rereading Rest Stop and then slowly making my way through the short stories. I think this one comes out in May, I want to say. Give me 1 second. Yes, it comes out May 5th. So I think that because I'm just so eager to pick it up, I'll probably read Rest Stop and then at least one other short story and just move my way through it slowly in the next couple of weeks. But just wanted to let you guys know that I do have those 2 arcs that I'm very, very, very grateful for having. All right, that's a lot of books, but I still have more because I'm hoping to do a vlog where I kind of just shop my shelves. We'll see how many I can get to, but I also just wanted to give out a couple more recommendations that I had on my shelves to just throw out here in case you need some recommendations on Black books to read for Black History Month. So quickly, I've talked about The Nickel Boys before by Colson Whitehead. This is about a reformatory school, and that's all I know. It's gonna be really difficult. If you guys don't know, I love The Reformatory by Tananarive Due, which is based off of the Dozier School of Boys, which this one is talked about as well, which was a real reformatory school that had horrors of kids. And actually, Tananarive Due's uncle died when he was like 16 or 15 or something in the Dozier School for Boys. This one talks about that same school, and yeah, I'm excited to pick this one up. I know it's going to be a heavy read. This one also has a movie adaptation, so we'll see how many of these I'll get to this month. But this one's one that I'm eyeing that's on my shelves as well. Then we have Neighbors and Other Stories by Diane Oliver. I didn't know much about this, but I have seen Favored Reader, who I'll have linked below, rave about the short story collection. It's a Black classic that I haven't read, so I think this would be cool along with Nat Cassidy to read Black short stories throughout the month and just kind of put them in between my full-length novels. All I know is that Diane Oliver died in 1966 at the age of 22, leaving behind these chilling tales that follow various characters as they navigate the day-to-day perils of Jim Crow America. Sounds great. We'll be reading some of this throughout the month, and you should too. Then I have a reread, which is Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. I was reminded of this book because Isaac's Song, the second book in this series, or duology, came out last year, and I follow Kayla from Kayla's Bookish Vibes, and I just watched today her top books of 2025, and this was her #1 book of 2025, and it reminded me how much I liked this. So I want to pick this book back up before moving into Isaac's Song. And it is a story of a dying dad writing to his only son, Isaac. And that's all I really want to say. So hoping to get to this one this month. And then lastly, I am so eager and hope that I can get to Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emezi. You guys know Akwaeke Emezi is one of my favorite authors of all time. And this is her fantasy romance, which is a new genre from them. So yeah, I'm interested. I don't know much about it aside from that, but we'll see. I don't know. These are just ones, like I said, from my shelves that are calling out to me, and we'll see. But if you needed some more Black books, there you go. Okay, y'all, sorry. It seems like I'm rushing a little bit because I'm trying to beat the darkness because it's starting to get dark if you can't tell. I filmed 2 videos today, but anyway, I am very excited, as always, to read Black authors, promote Black authors in the month of February for Black History Month. Let me know in the comments below what you plan on reading for Black History Month. As always, if you like what you saw here, please subscribe below. It helps me out. And until my next video, let's chat in the comments. So talk soon, y'all. Thanks for being here. Bye.